The Xbox Drive is powered by patrons at patreon.com/YumiCapri. And I want to say thank you to all of our patrons over there, especially our Diamond executive producers, Jonathan Brown and Slimer Snarf, our Platinum producer, Dallas Ford, and our Gold members, Argo, Ashley Nicholson, James Johnson, Gene K, Marcus O'Neill, Skinny Matt, Trucker Sloth, and Xavier Reyes. Thank you, everybody, for all of your support. Hey everyone, it's me, Sean Capri. I'm in my car and you're listening to the most horsepowerful podcast on the internet. It's the Xbox Drive. I'm on a Skype call with my friend Ryan Turford, the man on the moose, and on our journey today, guess what? Xbox Live costs a whole lot more money. Just kidding, no it doesn't. Who even knows what's going on anymore? So find out when you tune on into the Xbox Drive. Blah, 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 blah. It's so snowy today.
Greater than X.
Hello, Sean Capri.
Ryan Turford, how are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing well, my friend. How are you? How's the winter wonderland you got over there? I keep hearing you talk about it. What's going on over there in Edmonton?
I can't wait for you to see it. It's a powdery, white, snowy kind of day. My windshield wipers are working adequately as I try to get the snow out of my face. They're mostly frozen, but the show must go on, and God knows we couldn't actually do this, from my own house like a normal person. But I need my coffee, man. I need to go get a drink from McDonald's, and I want to talk some Xbox with you, dude.
Yeah, it sounds like a good plan. I mean, you needed coffee anyways, Sean. So, I mean, you had to actually eventually leave the house eventually, unlike me, who barely left the house in the last 3 weeks. I've just been
because I couldn't make coffee
down.
in my own house. I couldn't just do that. I've got to escape. This is, dude, I leave the house for 40 minutes a week, and it's basically this. This is it. It's the only time I'm leaving. So
I mean, it's a good excuse. It's a good reason to, And plus, I mean, we got to put the drive in Xbox Drive. Oh, see what I did there?
Exactly. Well, I mean, I did it. Anyway,
God,
what's
I'm
going
getting
on?
us out of here because I'm going to
Yeah.
segue away into cleaning the garage. So real quick, of course, we are on our way to 500 YouTube subscribers. So if you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/the Xbox Drive, especially if you just listen to us on the podcast feed, because we do have video versions of all of our podcasts go up there. Also, when we hit 500 subscribers, we will be giving away 1 year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate to one lucky subscriber. And all you have to do to enter is just subscribe. That's it. Then you're entered to win the fantabulous prize that is Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Speaking of YouTube, Sean, we have a drive-by shout-out this week.
Oh.
This is from Dallas Ford, and this is actually more of a question.
Dallas.
That is specifically for you, which is the reason I wanted to include it. So he asks, first question that comes to mind, where does Sean get his oil change? So Sean, Dallas wants to know where you get your oil change, so we're going to start the show off with that.
Okay, well, I don't know how many people will know of this place. It's called Cal Tire, and I'm pretty sure this guy. Oh man, I'm forgetting the name of the lake. The guy who founded Cal Tire, he either lived on a lake in British Columbia, Kalamalka, I think it was called Kalamalka Lake, and he started his own kind of auto repair and oil change and tire shop called Cal Tire. So that's where it happens, my friend. Thanks for asking.
That's where the oil magic happens. It's a thing. Well, Sean, we're going to jump right into the show here because we're moving and grooving on this show. We're not pulling any punches. We're going to pop our 8-tracks in. It's time for the playlist. And we played a plethora of games this week, Sean, a whole bunch of different games. So I'm going to start with you because I sense the drive-through approaching. What did you play this week, my friend?
You're way off. We didn't do nearly as much banter as usual, but that's okay. I played a little bit more KOTOR, and I think last week I came off a little not sure, what the heck is this game? It's kind of old, but as I've now ventured onto the second planet, here's the thing, man. Can I talk about specifics about it, or am I allowed to talk spoilers?
I mean, it's from 2003, Sean.
Right?
I think it's probably okay. But I will preface this for the audience, of course. KOTOR spoilers for the next 2 minutes or so.
Well, they're not even I wouldn't even say spoilers, but there's certain beats. There's I'm on the second planet. I think it's called Dantooing. Here's the thing: even if I spoil something, I'm not even sure if I'm saying what actually happened in the game. So there's that. My memory's terrible. I'm on Dantooine, the second planet. We've escaped Terrace or Taurus, the first planet. Terrible things happen there, but we're on our journey. We're with a Jedi, and I think I'm becoming a Jedi. I think I'm strong in the Force, Ryan. And I've met a whole bunch of different characters. There's this tiny little kind of like a Yoda character, but it's not Yoda. And apparently everybody of that species all sounds the same or tries to sound the same. And yeah, man, I had to study for a Yoda or for a Jedi test, and I passed the test. And it's starting to come together, man. It's starting to, I think you and I have chatted, like it's starting to resemble a little bit more of that Dragon Age format that I really, really loved, and the way that the characters interact with each other. So I'm starting to see it, man. I'm starting to see the way that I can build my party in ways that have the different strengths. So I can have somebody with their sword or lightsaber, and somebody else with a blaster. So I'm mixing up my party. I'm getting the RPG mechanics kind of rolling. So it's pretty cool, and I will continue to play. But goodness gracious, man. It's hard to continue with that when we are being distracted by everything else that's been going on. Like Cyber Shadow has happened. It's dropped.
There is that little game that came out this week, Cyber Shadow, which we've both been playing, not just Sean. And it's on Game Pass. First of all, if you haven't played Cyber Shadow yet, it just came out on Tuesday. It's on Game Pass. But Sean, what do you think about Cyber Shadow? Because I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it.
Ooh, well, I was kind of talking about it on stream last night, twitch.tv/Sean Capri, of course. And I don't think that I have like a huge amount of history with this style of game on NES, but I obviously recognize that this is 8-bit inspired, side-scrolling, ninja fun. And the first thing that caught my eye or ear, I guess, was the music. It's just amazing, dude. Like it's one of the things that I loved about Shovel Knight quite a bit. Of course, this being what are they called? Mechanical games. It's being developed by Mechanical Games or something like that, but produced by Yacht Club Games, not necessarily made by the same team that made Shovel Knight. But music is the thing that has really kept me going with this, in addition to a few other things. But music caught my eye, and I think the first chapter or so maybe fools me into thinking that I can actually be good at this game, because the second chapter is like, no, dude, this game is challenging, but provides every so often provides you with really cool power-ups. And as the levels get more intricate and complex, so do your abilities. And I think this is a particular format that well with some of the games that you've played.
Yeah, for sure. This game actually reminds me a lot of two games on the NES, which it's funny enough because I didn't realize that these two games were the games that the developer actually cited in an interview with Nintendo Life as their inspirations for the game until after I read until after playing it. It's like, oh, and then I read the article. I was like, oh, that's exactly what I thought it was going to be. So it's kind of like the mashing of Shadow of the Ninja from Natsume, which is an NES game, as well as Batman on the NES, which was also from Sunsoft, which were the makers of Blaster Master and a bunch of other games. So
totally.
It's really what was cool about this mishmash is that, again, you've got kind of that fast-paced ninja combat that's a little bit slower than something like Ninja Gaiden, but is definitely much faster than a lot of other games.
Right.
Combined with kind of the power set that you have in this game is actually very similar to Batman on NES. You get those types of powers as you progress through that game as well. And a lot of powers are actually very similar, like the wall sliding ability, for example, is pretty much right out of that game.
Right.
As well as some of the other powers, like the shurikens are essentially just the batarangs. So it's just funny to look at this game and kind of look back on classic NES games that I know and love, because both these games I think are fantastic on NES. In fact, if you've never played Shadow of the Ninja and you have a Nintendo Switch, and I know this isn't a Nintendo podcast, but if you have a Nintendo Switch with NES Online, you can actually go play that game because it's actually on the NES Online service. I know a lot of people missed it because it's a kind of a hidden gem game on the NES. Also,
yeah, I should try that.
Both those games I mentioned too, Batman and Shadow of the Ninja, the one thing they have in common as well, fantastic music in both games. That if you if you listen to it now, the music in both those games are incredible. So Cyber Shadow was a game that I was really excited for before it came out. Ever since they kind of unveiled it, this was a game that's always been kind of on my personal radar because that I love these types of games.
It's a Ryan Turford-ass game, man, if I ever saw one.
It definitely is, and like you said, with the difficulty, it definitely gets way harder. Like I haven't finished the game yet. I'm at level 8, and there's 10 levels, and by God, the difficulty gets so hard towards the end of the game.
Some of the bosses in particular, like I wouldn't say that it's like I haven't hit an impossible level yet, and I'm nowhere near the pro gamer that you are. But there's not really a cost to death that I've been able to discern. Anyways, I don't know if it's taking away something, but it doesn't seem like you can just die as many times as you want. There might be some sort of ending maybe at the end, like maybe if you die too many times you don't get the right ending. I don't know, but it seems like you can just die at will, and it doesn't really matter that there's checkpoints along the way that you can use to kind of refill your abilities and your skill points or your health points and things like that.
And there's no loading or anything either. So, I mean, as soon as you die, you're like right back there.
Isn't that
what
nice?
they do with the difficulty, though, later is they start, as you progress through the game, they start spacing the checkpoints farther and farther away from each other. So when you get towards the end of the game, you're almost doing like half the level with no checkpoints, Sean. So when you die, like if you fall into a pit or something like that, you have to pretty much start the level over again.
Well, it makes me miss what they did with Shovel Knight, where you could break the checkpoints for money and stuff. But Ryan, do you want anything? Do you want a drink or anything?
Oh no, I'm good.
You're okay? Sean. Okay, you go ahead. Oh, hi there. Can I please get a medium decaf with 2 Splenda?
Anything else for you today?
That is all.
Thank you. 185 first window, please.
Thank you. Guy seems like in a swell mood. Can you imagine? Did you ever work drive-thru? Have we talked about this, Ryan? Did you ever work a drive-thru?
No, I've never actually worked at a fast food restaurant at all.
Can you imagine working a drive-thru when it's minus 15 outside? Like these guys are, just to paint a picture, they're in like winter coats and toques and mitts, and I don't think most people don't even know what a toque is, which is mind blowing to me.
Well, you could just say beanie. That's like what most Americans call it. Yeah.
Well, because they don't like the toque is like warm, like a beanie is just sort of like an accessory, I think. But like you need like a toque, something like
that's what most Americans refer to toques as beanies, essentially, or at least that's what I've noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, this game is fun, man. I really like it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you don't like about it?
For me, honestly, it's not so much there's anything in particular about the game I'm not liking, but there's a problem. Kind of feeling like, no, it's more like I'm feeling kind of sameness with this, with a lot of other like retro style modern releases. In fact, I'm gonna throw it kind of to Todd Oxtra because he actually posted on Twitter about this too, how he's kind of over a lot of 8-bit style games because he feels like they are all kind of feel and look the same, or they just all kind of have similar styles and feels. And I'm not at the point, I think I'm not at the same point as Todd is on this one, but I do definitely feel like there's something
to be said
about that. A little less
that.
Special about this one.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of why I wanted to chat with you about it, and that's why I pointed out, like, I don't really have the history with these games, so I'm not sure exactly, like, what nods there are, maybe that hits people a little bit differently. I don't really have that, so to me, that does look like a retro game that seems to control really well, and the music slaps, as the kids say. Thank you. So it seems like good, but the other thing that I would say to Todd is I have gone through that, but like in 2012. And so I think like this happens in a rolling way, because like when Shovel Knight hit, I dismissed it because of what it looked like. That it was like, I was like, oh man, there's another one of these retro games. So these have been kind of a mainstay for basically since the Wii U days, I think. And slowly but surely I've kind of come in and out of that. Like that, I think that there's too many. So that'll hit people at different times is kind of my take on it. Yeah,
for sure. And it's just one of those things where like I actually really love this game as far as the gameplay and again like the music is, as far as that's concerned. I think it's great. Right. The story kind of sucks, but to be fair, you're not playing this type of game for the story anyways.
Yeah.
And I think it visually looks great. It's just I'm just not over the moon with this game. Like I feel like it's a little too similar to games that I've already played. That for me, it has less of a special feeling. But at the same time, if you're not someone like me who's played almost the entire NES library, for example.
Yeah, like me.
I like you, Sean. I think you're gonna have a great time with Cyber.
Yeah, and I
think that you're probably gonna fall in love with this type of game, and I think that for a lot of people that's gonna be kind of their reaction. Just for me personally, I think that even though I'm loving playing it, I'm not constantly craving going back to it, and that's kind of where I'm at with the game. So.
You know what has me going back to it though, Ryan? It's not even a positive thing that has me going back to it. It's these damn achievements, Ryan. Can we leave this conversation without dealing with the achievement situation on this? I popped my first achievement maybe 10, 15 minutes into the game. It wasn't like you press start. Like you actually had to do something to beat a boss or something like that.
Well, all of them are like that, actually.
16 points, Ryan. What in the crap? I thought we were over this. I nearly threw my controller across the room. There's few things in this world. Actually, there's a lot of things. It made me lose my cool. And 16 points popped up. I was like, not again. I've had this sorted. I haven't had to deal with this since I think like Civilization Revolution or whatever on the 360. There was a couple games back then. What nonsense,
Ultimate Mortal
Ryan.
Kombat Trilogy was like the worst offender. You'd get an achievement that was worth 3 achievement points, John. 3.
Terrible. Absolutely like a cardinal sin. And I know that I tweeted this out, and Badbit from the Trophy Room, a PlayStation podcast, jumped in to say, our trophies are all just bronze, silver, and gold over here. And to that I say, have fun paying for the game over there, all right? It's on Game Pass, bro. But still, this is a problem, man. What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was like you. I thought we were over this, but yeah, like the first achievement popped, and I was like, oh, it's 16 points. Hopefully that's just a one-off. And then the next achievement point I got was, oh, it's 16 more points. Great. I love this. It's just
so it fits itself every 5 achievements that you get.
Yeah. Although one of the things.
Sorry, go ahead.
One of the things I like though is that the achievements themselves aren't just, hey, you beat the boss. It's, hey, you beat the boss in this way. Like it encourages you to try a bunch of different things with each encounter, and that's how you get all the achievements for this game. You're not going to get you're not even going to get half of them by just completing it. You'll get you get one for getting each upgrade to your character, as well as one for beating the game. But for the most part, if you don't look at the achievement list and look at kind of like approaching the bosses differently, then you won't actually get them at all, which I think is actually a really smart way of doing it. It
is. So, there's one boss who's way easier. If you can just sneak in behind him and just like slash away, he's way easier. But the achievement is something about having honor and attacking him face on. And he called me out when I defeated him. He was like, well, you did it, but you stabbed me in the back, right? Like totally, it challenges you to play in the most challenging ways. But I'm like, I think I'll just stab this guy in the back, to be honest with you.
Also, there's multiple achievements for beating many levels without getting hit, or making it to certain bosses without using your weapons. So it's like it's going to be a very tough 1,000.
Yeah, overall, this thing can just like pound sand. This list can just go away.
Yeah, and instead you'll be stuck with the kind of the uneven achievement list.
That's the thing. Like I've got 80 points on this thing so far, and I'm like, I think I might just leave this, but I don't want to because I really genuinely like the game, my friend.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I'm actually really glad you're enjoying it, even though, again, I do think that when you're probably going to struggle a little bit when you get to some of the later levels.
There's no doubt.
I'm setting the expectation for you, so hopefully maybe it won't be as bad as I'm thinking it might be.
I have no problem just tossing it aside and going to the next thing, Ryan.
I mean, you still got KOTOR to finish, Sean, and
I got KOTOR, I got Hitman. I want to talk about Hitman next week. We got The Medium coming out right away here. Goodness
tomorrow,
gracious.
Or I should say today, by the time they're listening to this, The Medium will be out.
We're in the middle of The Medium
too, which is kind of crazy because it's kind of like very middling reviews. It's like people either gave it like 5s and 6s or they gave it 9s and 10s. So there's not a lot of in between on that. I'm very excited to see for myself tomorrow and play it. But Sean, the other game, speaking of spooky games that I played this week, was not on Xbox. But I did want to mention it though because a demo for this game is coming to Xbox in March. But I had to play this on PS5 because there's no other way to play it. But Resident Evil 8, the demo is out on PlayStation 5 only. But I wanted to talk about it real quick because I thought it was really interesting, a really interesting demo. First of all, it's very similar to the kitchen demo that they did for Resident Evil 7, where it followed a different character that wasn't the main character. You don't play as Ethan in this demo. You play as a young woman who's basically locked in this dungeon cell, essentially, below this spooky castle. And you basically have to try and escape the castle. And along the way, you run into some of the characters that are kind of involved in the main Resident Evil 8 storyline.
That's cool.
And again, I don't want to go into maybe specifics in case anyone decides to check out this demo or if this is the demo we get on Xbox, because we don't know what type of demo is coming to Xbox. All we know is one is coming in a couple months. So I don't want to spoil it because, again, there are some cool plot points and interesting moments that would be cool to talk about, but I don't want to spoil them for anyone. But one of the things I will say about this game is gorgeous, Sean. This might be one of the most gorgeous games I've ever played at all because, it was very much built with next gen in mind, essentially. And the RE engine is a very pretty engine, but just exploring just the dank dungeon of the castle, and then when you get to the upper floors of the castle and you're starting to go into like the really fancy ballrooms and really there's a lot of really interesting areas in the castle that you get to explore. And I'm even more excited for this game than I was before. Way more excited. It's a game that I was already pretty excited about, but I mentioned on last week's show that I'm less excited about it because it's a first-person game, and I always prefer the third-person Resident Evil games, even though, again, we've only had one first-person Resident Evil game. But I like the tone they're setting with the demo, which I think is the tone they're trying to set for the overall game, where, again, it's kind of like this like spooky tale of like witches and vampires and werewolves and stuff, but also with Resident Evil flavor, which I think is actually a really cool vibe. And the castle, again, kind of feels like exploring the castle in Resident Evil 4. It's just, again, it's like a spooky castle, but it's also got this like really pristine beauty to it as well. So yeah, I really liked my time with the demo, and I'm really interested to hear what Xbox fans are going to think of the demo when it comes to Xbox, or when the demo that we do get comes to Xbox, because it might be one that's just cut out of the main game instead of this prelude demo. But either way, I'm super jazzed for Resident Evil 8, and it's a shame that this demo was only on PlayStation. It's really weird that they did it that way, because I wish everyone would be able to try this. But you're probably not going to be able to have to wait long. Like probably in the next month or two, we'll have a new demo on Xbox, which I'm excited about.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Sean, let's slam the brakes on this conversation. It's time for some breaking news. And oh boy, this was a news week, Sean.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. Now, I know that there's a big topic that we're going to talk about, but I'm going to get the two smaller ones out of the way, simply because the big topic's going to lead into the carpool. I want to make sure we touch on the two smaller things first before we jump into the big thing. So first off, speaking of Resident Evil, we got the Resident Evil showcase this week, Sean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all the predictions were right.
We talked about right, you mean incredibly wrong. But you know what? That's the fun about making predictions, though. But obviously during the Resident Evil showcase, we got the release date for Resident Evil 8. It's coming on May 7th, 2021, which again, really exciting. It's so only good, again, like 5 months away. So I'm so excited to finally play this game. We got to see more of the 7 or 8 foot tall lady that's just walking around stalking you in this game.
She was built for memes. She was built for memes, dude. Like that wasn't necessarily like world building. That was all about like this is going to get shared on the internet a lot.
The crazy thing too is when you explore the castle, it's like, oh, that's why the ceilings are so high in this castle. It's for her to walk around. Everything makes sense.
Okay, so it is part of the world building, literally. Okay, yeah, exactly. That's neat.
But also, the game's going to be launching on Xbox One. They had only announced this for next gen before, but it is also coming to Xbox One and PS4.
But Ryan, I didn't think they could do that. I thought they can't build games for last gen and this gen. Like, how is that? It's going to hold it back. I thought the games were going to be held back by last gen.
I mean, clearly the demo I played just couldn't have at all looked like a next gen thing, Sean, because it's coming to Xbox One. Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Yeah, amazing.
So as I mentioned before, there's going to be a demo for the game this spring. And again, we don't know the details of that, but we just know there is one. They also announced, though, and this was kind of leading into all the hints we were getting about the anniversary of Resident Evil and kind of all the different characters and stuff, because they'd also posted this artwork for last year about the Resident Evil history that had like all the different Resident Evil characters on it. And that was kind of why I was thrown off a little bit with my predictions, thinking it was a collection. But instead, we're getting a multiplayer only game called Reverse, Reverse, essentially.
Oh, get it.
Which will be
Resident Evil,
which will be free along with Village. So when you buy Village, you get both games, kind of like Resident Evil 3 with Project Resistance, essentially. Right. And it will have you play as different heroes and villains from across the Resident Evil games in a team deathmatch setting. And I'm not going to pull any punches, Sean. This looks horrible. This looks really, really, really bad.
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
Because the multiplayer mode, I mean, it seemed interesting because you have it's almost like a hero shooter, but with Resident Evil, which I don't necessarily think is a bad idea.
Sounds awesome.
Man, the gameplay that they showed looks really rough. Like, first of all, it's really weird because they're running around the Raccoon City police station, like in Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
But for some reason, either the Raccoon City police station became like 10 times taller, or all the characters are like 4 feet tall.
They're little people.
They're so tiny. Like they basically barely get over like the windows in Resident Evil 2. So it's just like seeing them run around in these like really like even worse looking environments than we saw in Resident Evil 2 remake. I don't know, man. I don't know what they're doing.
I was about to jump in to say like this could be the dark horse of the year, having not seen anything about it. But the way you were describing it, I'm like, that sounds awesome. Like I want to play that. But I mean, maybe it'll be like one of those like kind of junky games that happens to be fun for some reason.
That's what I'm hoping for. Again, I'm not seeing it in the gameplay that they showed us. But again, they only showed us a quick snippet. You never know. It might be more fun than what it actually looks like. But visually speaking, if we were just to judge the book by its cover, it does not look good.
No, it's not a very good book.
And again, it's one of those things where like, I love Resident Evil, Sean. I love Resident Evil more than most people.
They're messing with your Resident Evil, man.
I don't know why they keep trying to make multiplayer work with Resident Evil. I just don't understand why they're doing it, because I think Friday the 13th and Dead by Daylight, for example, prove that you can do scary horror multiplayer games correctly.
That's why they do it.
Exactly, but you don't do it by making a team-based shooter like that. It basically is like, it's all the things I didn't like about like Umbrella Corps or Resident Evil 6 kind of rolled into one game.
I gotta say, the more you pile on this game, the more it makes me want to play it. I don't know why, but I'm just like, dude, I just want to try it
because
I want to try it.
It comes with Village. I'm gonna be buying the game, so it's just I will have it. So I will definitely try it, because I also wasn't very excited about Project Resistance, and that was definitely an experience that really disappointed me when I played it too. But
oh no,
I at least tried it. I played a couple matches of it. I tried to get into it and gave it an honest try, and just couldn't get into it. And that's what I'm gonna do with this game as well. Is that when Reverse comes with Village, I'll at least try it. Who knows? Maybe I'll latch into it. Maybe I won't. But yeah, I couldn't be less excited about something. But again, it comes with the game. So you're getting it for free with something you're already buying, so I can't be too mad at it or anything like that.
Yeah, well, they're giving you that instead of all the things that you wanted that we talked about last week. You're not getting your collection, you're getting this instead. So it's got to be kind of a double whammy. You're not getting the thing you wanted, and the thing they're giving you looks like it's kind of stinky. No good.
I mean, to be fair, with the thing I wanted, I kind of just wanted to woo that into existence, Sean.
Right, of course.
So that's on me. That's not on.
You should have done it earlier. Yeah. You should have gotten it out there maybe a year ago.
I think I mentioned it more than a year ago.
You probably did, actually.
Other news story before we kind of get to the topic du jour this week. THQ Nordic announced that Biomutant will officially launch on Xbox One and Series S and X on May 25th of this year. So same month as Resident Evil. The reason I wanted to bring this up as well is that Biomutant was actually a really promising looking third-person shooter from THQ Nordic, but it's kind of been in development hell for the last 3 or 4 years, and most people were starting to think this game was never going to come out. So I'm actually really excited to see what the final game is going to look like for Biomutant. Again, this tweet that we got was just a tweet with a screenshot. We didn't really get any new footage or anything like that, but I think they're releasing a new trailer soon for Biomutant. So I'm really interested to see more, because again, I think this it looked like a really promising Xbox One game. That looked like it was going to do some cool stuff with the third-person shooter genre. It's essentially going to be like a third-person shooter RPG, kind of like Borderlands in a way, but with less looty than Borderlands. But and you play as like an animal-human hybrid, and you run around. You're kind of like this raccoon person, kind of like Rocket Raccoon.
Can I be honest with you? Can I be honest with you? The title of this game is one of the most uninteresting titles I've ever heard. This is a video game. Biomutant.
I can definitely concur with that. I could imagine this with like really gaudy like NES art on like an NES cartridge.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like I picture like the game that you rent from like the convenience store around the corner that somehow still rents games, and the cardboard's all like ratted out and everything. It's in terrible shape. That's Biomutant. That's what I'm picturing.
It's probably published by Acclaim as well, or LJN.
Yeah, Acclaim. It absolutely is an Acclaim game. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. Or I imagine the box art kind of be like Werewolf on the NES, where it's like this werewolf ripping through this like this yellow cover, but then behind the werewolf is like the circuit board for the cartridge, because it's like he's ripping through the cartridge, Sean.
Yeah. Okay, what else?
That's a deep callback. All right, Sean, let's move on to the topic du jour, the big news story that happened this week, and we got a lot to talk about and unpack with this one, but we're definitely going to do that. Xbox Live Gold, of course. The big thing that happened this week was that Microsoft on Friday morning announced that Xbox Live Gold was going up in price. It was essentially going to be $60 for every 6 months instead of $60 a year. So it was doubling in price essentially.
Good God.
It was essentially going up $1.50 a month per month. Or I think it was like $7 for every 3 months, or again, double the price for the year, because you could no longer buy a year anymore. That was something that we talked about last year, where they removed the 1 year memberships for gold, and they've now gone to 6 months. But the 6 months membership were going to be $60
That's
US.
Crazy. That is crazy.
Which is just nuts. Because again, that puts it like $30 less per year than Game Pass Ultimate, which includes Game Pass. So it's just like, why would you get gold at that point? But
Well,
obviously,
exactly.
people on the internet got really upset about this, as the internet does.
As the internet does.
Later that evening, Microsoft issued an apology and stated that they were going to keep the price exactly the same. But not only that, and this I think is the bigger announcement of the two, free-to-play games are no longer going to be required to have Xbox Live Gold to play. So you can play Fortnite, you can play Warframe or any other free-to-play game without Xbox Live Gold, which I think is a good thing. I think that's something they should have done a long time ago. That's the way it is on every other console. So it's weird that it was only on Xbox that you had to play Fortnite. So I think that's definitely a good move. And apparently that was a move that was in the works for a while anyways, that they were going to announce later this year, but when it was ready to go, it's not ready to go yet. So obviously you can't go play those games now without gold, but in the next month or two, they said they don't have an exact date for it yet, but soon that restriction is going to be lifted. But before I kind of give my long thoughts about this, Sean, because this was a whole kerfuffle online, I want to hear what you have to say about this. Because what do you think about this in general?
Obviously, insanely fast turnaround on this, and it cannot be understated, like how massive a move that was for them to reverse it in that way. Because like we saw the retail cards out there, these things have been printed. Although like printing isn't necessarily the largest cost or the shipping or anything like that. It's not that huge, but it would cause, I think, other companies and organizations to maybe take just a little longer than a couple hours to completely reverse this decision, just rendering all that stock completely useless. So huge kudos to them for the callback. Dude, I do have a lot of thoughts on this. And I didn't even tweet about it because I could sense that it was a heated topic and that, Twitter doesn't really seem to be the place for anything remotely heated. I'm like, because it doesn't affect me, and it would never affect me. Like personally, as a gamer, I'm like, you could charge $1 trillion for Xbox Live. I don't want it anymore. That's not a product for me. I have completely moved on. So like, good on you for if people are going to pay $60 for 6 months, and like, go ahead. What we learned very quickly is that people probably don't really want to do that. But for me personally, it didn't impact me. And I don't think that it impacts you. And I don't think that it impacts like 90% of the people who listen to this, or even 97% of the people who are screaming about it. So like my reaction to it is complex in that way because I'm responding to what the actual news is, but I'm also responding to the reaction. So this is getting a little bit meta. And I feel like the reaction, just like a lot of things on the internet, drives me absolutely bonkers because this doesn't impact people. Go ahead, let them charge like $90 for 6 months. Like who cares? Just don't buy it, right? So that's kind of like my early thoughts. But like, what are you in line with that at all? Are you completely like, were you genuinely offended by this increase in price?
So here's the thing. Before I joined this podcast, I was very much the type of person that this would actually affect because I wasn't subscribed to Game Pass before joining this podcast. In fact, probably I would say 6 months into doing the podcast with you, Sean, I wasn't even paying for Game Pass every month. In fact, a lot of times if I wasn't paying for either Gold or Game Pass at all because I wasn't really using those services a lot. The only time I would usually buy Game Pass for a month is if there was a game I wanted to play in Game Pass. I would subscribe for 1 month to just Game Pass only, and then just drop it at the end of the month when I'm done playing it.
Right.
Like I would not be constantly subscribed to it. Likewise, I would subscribe to just Gold if there was a time where, say, for example, there was a friend of mine who wanted to play online. I would just sign up for that month just so we could play that night or that weekend or whatever, and then just stop paying for it. So it would have affected old Ryan, non-podcast Ryan, which is why I think I have a little bit of a unique perspective on this because I think that I would have been the type of person that would have been affected by this type of announcement. And
I should create clarity on that. What I'm trying to say is because I don't just have Xbox Live because like my subscription is to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, so I have that included. That's what I hope that was clear.
Oh yeah, it definitely was.
Okay.
Yeah, and whereas for me, I was always splitting it or like picking one or the other. So I wasn't really settling on one or just likewise. I don't play a lot of online games. You already know this about me. Like I mostly play single player games. I mostly play games by myself unless it's Halo Saturday night. I'm not usually playing games with people.
Right. So then let's play out the scenario then. So like let's go back to old Ryan where you're like maybe I'll buy a month here and maybe I'll do a month there, that sort of thing. What do you do in that case where Gold costs that much more? Do you begrudgingly buy gold, or do you feel manipulated and forced into probably just end up buying Game Pass Ultimate?
If it was old Ryan, I would have just said, I would have told my friends, sorry, I'm not going to play because I don't have gold.
Not at all. Yeah.
And just not buy it at all because it wouldn't be worth it. Yeah. I mean, especially with that high of an increase. Again, $1.50 it doesn't sound like much when you're paying once, but let's say I forget to renew this, like turn off the auto billing, for example, then I'm paying another $1, like extra $1.50 on top of that. So, or if I wanted to actually plunk down some money for gold, it would definitely hurt as a little bit. So it definitely would have changed my buying habits a little bit as to what I spend my money on. Kind of like how Game Pass Ultimate has, I think, helped me change my buying habits for the better. Because I'm not buying as many games now because I have Game Pass. So I definitely think that there are a lot of people out there, probably not so many that are listening to this podcast, that probably are in kind of a similar boat.
Yeah, so it's an interesting sort of scenario to look back to, but the thing that separates it is time and the value that has been created by Game Pass. So I'm not trying to defend it. I feel like I'm it sounds like maybe I'm trying to defend the price increase. Like it was really stupid, honestly, and it was pretty transparent in terms of like what they're trying to do, which is make Game Pass seem even more valuable. But like they didn't. It was an unforced error because they already make Game Pass an incredible value. They didn't need to change that on the gold side. It did seem like it was that the gold subscription is for the audience who isn't necessarily like all in on Xbox, right? So generally speaking, like if you have somebody who's a recurring customer, somebody who's coming back all the time, you want to give that person like deals and incentives to stay with them. So that's what Game Pass is. But new people, I don't know, like you kind of get them a piecemeal at a time. You don't have the economies of scale that you get when people are subscribe to a service month over month. So I didn't mind the increase in price all that much. And I honestly wondered, like, if they stuck to their guns, what would PlayStation do? Would that automatically create value for PlayStation to keep their subscription the exact same? Or like, is there something in the market that say maybe it's time to increase the prices on PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live Gold? I don't know. But ultimately, the result was they backed off, and I think they deserve kudos for that. They listened to a rambunctious internet crowd, and I think they end up in the right spot. Free-to-play games are free-to-play, which, as you mentioned, is the same as other consoles, which is important. But I think more important than that is it's the same on PC, which is part of the Xbox ecosystem. And that never really made sense to, I think, really anybody, of why you would have to have a paid subscription for consoles to play multiplayer, but not on PC, which is also supported by Xbox.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you. I think that definitely they made the right move here. And if they would have just come out and said from the beginning, they're doing this price increase basically to make up for the inflation that would have happened between now and the last time they increased the price, which was 2005. That was the whole reason why they were doing this, apparently, was to basically adjust the price for inflation. Then I think there would have been less rambunctiousness. But it's also because you have to remember, too, like Netflix increases their price all the time. Amazon Prime does. Like every subscription service naturally raises their price over time.
Exactly.
It was the combination of it being such a stark increase, combined with the fact that there was no added value or perceived value, and the fact that they weren't very clear in the messaging as to why they were doing it. I think those were the three things that kind of led to it being a real problem.
I was waiting for like the good news to drop. I'm like, well, this is ridiculous and insane. Like, where's the good news? It's like, well, this isn't so good, but we got a little goodie for you. That's the way you do that sort of PR. Like, if you've got a bit of a bomb to drop, you should probably give a little something as well. They ended up getting there, but I was waiting for that second tweet to come out to say, like, I don't know, maybe there's a Halo something like coming out. Maybe there's some big news. Yeah. And it was like, that was the only thing that was happening that day. Like that was like nothing else was happening. So it occupied all the space and oxygen on Twitter that day.
But I'm gonna move on to the cargo pool, Sean, because we got a little bit of time left and we want to answer a couple questions.
All right.
I have to do with this topic. So we're gonna start with Blaze Knight at Blaze Knight 0923. He asks, a lot of people want to see the end of games with gold. Can you explain why losing bonus games that you get to keep forever is a consumer-friendly move for Xbox to make in the wake of Xbox Live Gold price hike debacle? I can't read. Especially when Sony is providing the same service. And this kind of goes back to what you were talking about before with Sony's value as well. Like, I'm with Blaze Knight. I'm like, yes, games with gold isn't always super strong, but it's free value on something you're already paying for. And it actually, again, adds to the fact that people are already paying for gold. It's something we heard about in the Microsoft investors call that happened this week, that there are still lots of people paying for just gold and as opposed to Game Pass Ultimate. In fact, more people are paying for gold than are currently paying for Game Pass Ultimate at 18 million subscribers. So I think that's why they have to throw them a bone with something. And especially I don't see why people are asking for games with gold to go away, because even though it hasn't always been super strong, they're free games.
Because they're being flippant about it. That's why. They're not even really thinking about it. And maybe there could be the argument that could be said that it is confusing maybe to people. I don't necessarily always buy the confusing argument of things. Maybe it could be argued that the games aren't really as good on games with gold, so why even do it anymore? You kind of put yourself up against PlayStation, which by the way has a banger of a month coming up here in February. I think Control is going to be one of the games with PlayStation Plus. It's just how do you? The only way to really you got to compete head on. It's super interesting why Nintendo does it the way they do, because you can't really compare the services across the board, but you absolutely can compare PlayStation Plus with Xbox Live Gold and the games with Gold. I don't know, man. I just think that the way to deal with games with gold is just make the games better, make it a more compelling, offering. But it's got to be tricky to balance out with Game Pass.
I think this month, they have a really good month for games with gold.
We've
got Gears 5, Resident Evil Remake, Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, which is the original Xbox game I talked about on 2 weeks ago's episode, Dandara, which is a really good Metroidvania game, and then Lost Planet 2, which is probably the weakest game of the bunch, but those are 5
pretty good. Dude, I love Lost Planet.
Games.
I love that game. It's so funny. I was just about to buy it over the holidays. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly, maybe they're finally seeing that they're kind of weak against PlayStation Plus lately, and that's exactly what they need to do. They need to lean into the generational stuff, which they're doing with that offering as well. You got all the console generations, and that would be a way to differentiate it, I think, against just what PlayStation offers in general, and then specifically with PlayStation Plus, at least in the short term.
That's also the very first time they've given away a Game Pass game that's currently in Game Pass on games with gold with Gears 5.
With Gears 5, yeah.
That's the first time they've done that, and honestly, I think that's something they should do more of.
I agree.
Include those with games with gold, because it does add a little bit of value, so you're not forced into Game Pass, especially with a game like Gears 5 that's been out for a while. Last question before we roll on out of here is from Todd Oxtra at Toxtra. He asks, considering all of the Xbox Live hubbub, is it time to eliminate paid online and just focus on Game Pass on every platform? And he lists basically a pricing scheme that he came up with. For $5, you get Game Pass streaming. For $10 a month, you get Xbox or PC Game Pass with streaming. And then for $15 a month, you get Ultimate with Xbox and PC and game streaming with EA Play. What do you think about this model from Todd Oxtra, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have kind of thrown out the idea of maybe they should just throw out Xbox Live Gold as a subscription. But did you already mention how many people are on Xbox Live Gold? Or did you just say many?
They didn't give an exact number, but they said it's more than the 18 million that are subscribed to.
Yeah, it's got to be 80 million people or something crazy like that. Or I don't even know. It's
Xbox Live has 100 million active subscribers, and only 18 million of them are on Game Pass. So
Game Pass, yeah. So somewhere in between, there's the gold in there. You can't just throw that out. That's the problem. That's the reason they did what they did, which is to try and push people to the subscription, which is the future, right? They're in this tricky transitional space, and you can feel how awkward that is. It's like a prepubescent kind of area where we can see the streaming future, we can see the Game Pass future, but we're still kind of tied to we're in these growing pains that are happening. So I don't know. You can't just get rid of it because it's a huge amount of revenue. That was the whole reason Xbox exists as an entity right now, is because they introduced the idea of online, an online subscription that people are paying revenue every single month into Xbox. So you can't just throw that out. So I like this idea of different pricing schemes for different things. Where I think I would like them to go is simple. Even with Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate, I feel like even that's a little bit too confusing. I would like to see them just with something that offers you all these different perks, and if you take advantage of them, great. If you don't, great. And it's kind of like Amazon Prime, right? So I've got Amazon Prime and basically just use it for my deliveries. But I also get a free Twitch thing, which I sometimes forget to use. I also get Amazon Video, I think. There's a ton of stuff that comes with it. It's one subscription. There's not different prices for different products that come with it. That's simple. And I'd like to see them get there rather than different products, different price points and options. I like simplicity with it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. Whereas I think that if they were ever going to drop the online thing, I don't hope they go in this model. I think they do something where it's like you got one subscription and that's kind of it. But anyway, Sean, we got to go. But before we go, Sean, plugs go.
You can find me on Twitter at Sean Capri. It's Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants. And I think I mentioned this last week. On We the Gamercast this week is Chris Johnston from Player One Podcast. And my goodness gracious, what an honor it was to have him on the show. So please check that out. The podcast is called We the Gamercast. And if you like the show, even just a little bit, you can throw a buck our way at patreon.com/you me Capri.
Very nice, my friend. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. That's TURFORD, because everybody always asks. You also find us on Twitter at The Xbox Drive, on YouTube at youtube.com/The Xbox Drive, and on podcast services around the globe. So for Sean Capri, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been episode 175 of The Xbox Drive, and we out. Bye.
I have to go to McDonald's one more time to get my wife a drink that I didn't get myself coffee, and I've been drinking it kind of, but I've been muting my mic so I didn't have to make you guys listen to me sipping on their drink the whole time, so I gotta get Diet Coke for my wife, Chelsea. Bob.